So, it takes 5 figures to shoplift, 5 principles to prevent this. Love, truth, peace, oh! Freedom and justice, take off the shackles and get off the slave ship. It takes 5 figures to shoplift, 5 principles to prevent this. Love, truth, peace, oh! Freedom and justice, take off the shackles and get off the slave ship.
Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I, self-law, am master, trust this. Born children strolling through concrete greenery. Police see you and not seeing me. Activated my auric field. Watch the ripples. Freeze pigs in their tracks like I got them crippled. Can't move. No more violations or abuse. Study what was brought to you by Noble Drew. The order of the day known by few. Under the bus, we were through by those who knew. Now Moors don't even know what they supposed to, and don't admit that their boy in charge is who screwed the nation. Quoting all chapters of the Quran, not fall of man and creation. Suffering from mental castration, historical alterations, and birthright amputations.
5 figures to shoplift, 5 principles to prevent this. Love, truth, peace, oh! Freedom and justice, take off the shackles and get off the slave ship. It takes 5 figures to shoplift.
Start up with the prayer.
Alright.
Everybody to rise. Face the east. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Peace.
Freedom.
And
justice.
justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
And
my salvation.
By night.
And by day. Through his holy prophet. Noble Drew Ali. Islam. Peace. We're here once again. We got another installment. Canaanland Moor's class, Sunday class. We got a special day today. We got our Skype class today. Just to give we got a few announcements. We're coming up on Noble Drew Ali Day. We're going to be having two sessions this year. One on the 10th of January, which is going to be at the temple with Brother Seth and Rabe and Grand Chief Nature El Bay. And the Sunday session is going to be at Mid Scarborough Community Center. That's between Midland and Kennedy on Eglinton, 12 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And that's with Brother Seth and Rabe and Brother Denham L. We also want to say Islam to Brother Sheldon Bay for the great presentation that he did on what did he even call it again? What is it? Just Moors all over the world?
Yeah, Moors of the world.
Moors of the world. So he, Brother Sheldon, he's a shoe designer, so he always goes all over the place, and everywhere he goes, he tries to pull his camera out, get pictures, whatever like that. So he did some good work. We're gonna have that one uploaded soon as well. Today's class is with Sister Selah Bay. I met Sister Bay when I went to Delaware. We were in Delaware for a lecture with Taj Tariq Bay, Grand Sheikh Messiah, Grand Sheikh Alim El Bay, and Sister Raz. That's up on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. And I didn't even know that, Sis was heavy in the astrology and all that stuff till I seen her in a few videos with Brother Abdullah doing classes. So we figured, since we got the Masonic Gate here, and we always support all the active Moors, we figured that since she's a student leading up to master of astrology, that we give her a platform so that she can put some stuff on the record, being that today is the solstice. So we're gonna hit it off with the female energy. As we say, and we always bring up the 101 questionnaire. Noble Drew Ali holding the sister on the cover of the 101 questionnaire, just to prove the point that Allah is feminine, right? And we have to give supreme honors to the feminine energy every single chance that we get. Before we start, I just wanted to read something quickly out of a book that I got when I went to Shreveport, Louisiana a couple weeks ago from Nubian Culture Bookstore. Also, Islam to Nubian Culture Bookstore and all the Moors in Louisiana that made that manifest. So the Moors know as well. Everybody knows about Canaanland all over the place. That's right. Canaanland is not a secret to people. Canaanland is only a secret to people in Canaanland who don't want to get down. Who don't want to get down with this, right? But the Moors in Louisiana, they've been on Canaanland for about 2-3 years or whatever, watching Canaanland Moors classes, right? The Grand Sheikess out there, she was on Canaanland for about 3 years, right? So take advantage of what we got here. You know what I mean? This is not just you know, some black guys with fezzes on, you know, or black masons or whatever like that. This is real. We got calls from the Netherlands. We got calls from Switzerland. We got calls from Japan. We got calls from all over the Northwest of Mexico, from Moors who wish they had a temple where they're at, and because they see how stuff runs in Canaanland, they wish that they were in Canaanland so they can come to the temple, just to give Omar some, right? Because you know they don't like to come to, you know, the class or whatever like that. But there's Moors all over the place that recognize what's up. They wish that they had Canaanland temple to come to. Where they're at. You know what I mean? Yeah. So Islam to all the Moors worldwide, thank you for your support. We're just going to read from a book called The Astrological Foundation of the Christ Myth, Book 1, by Malik H. Jabbar. And this is page 45, figure, you know, starting at 9, feminine energy, you know, get this thing going off. The astronomical analogy. All the myths of the sun god describe some kind of threat to the life of the child god at birth. Also mentioned is the governor or king that sees the child as a threat to his sovereignty. This aspect, that's my secret. I need that secret. This aspect is easily explained. The birth or rebirth of the sun takes place annually on December 22nd, right in the depths of winter. The astrological sign of Capricorn represents the Lord of Hades, hell, the underworld. Capricorn is Satan, the cardinal sign of winter that represents opposition to the beneficent effects of the sun on our planet. And Capricorn, or Satan, rules while the sun is in the captivity or weakness after falling below the celestial equator in the winter season. Winter, Satan, or Capricorn takes full control at the winter solstice, and within 3 days of Satan mounting his throne, so to speak, he is challenged by the resurgence or birth of the sun, represented as Jesus in the biblical mythology on December 25th. So without further ado, we want to put our hands together and welcome our sister, our good sister, from a long way, Sister Selah Bey. Floor is yours, sis.
Thank you, and thank you for the introduction. And I wanted to just give a little bit more information about myself. I domicile in what is known as Washington, D.C. I grew up in what is known as Virginia, so it's right outside of D.C. And I grew up having a thorough thirst and love for reading. And so I remember being young and my parents telling me that I was, on an advanced reading scale based on my age range and everything. And so that always has been a big, I'd say, a big motivation in my life is reading to gain knowledge. And so now I'm a reading teacher, and I teach all ages from kindergarten and even younger to adults. And I currently teach at a community college. It's Prince George's Community College in Maryland. But, and so, yes, I teach reading, and the etymology goes hand in hand with the reading, so that's how Abdullah and I linked up. However, I found that a lot of my students had a thirst for astrology as well. And most of my students are between the ages of 18 and 24. So that's the youth, right? And not the youth that are in high school, where a lot of them are kind of dictated by what their family members are telling them. But, you know, the youth where they are at an age where they're coming up with their own viewpoints and making their own decisions about life and their experiences. So it's a really vulnerable age group, and I just noticed a lot of them would have a strong interest in astrology. So I would stay after sometimes and talk to them about various concepts. And so one thing that I noticed, and not just with the young people, but overall with people, is that one of the fundamental things about astrology that we have to understand is that it is what guides and rules civilizations. It is not, yes, it is a way for us to learn more about ourselves. So it is as psychological, it is a tool for psychology. It is also a means for us to learn about other people and how we can interact with them, and the strengths and weaknesses that we can have with those people. However, what supersedes that is that calendars were made based on astrology, knowing when to plant, knowing when to reap, knowing when certain seasons are coming and going. All of that is based off of astrology. And astrology, if you break it down etymologically, is the study of the stars, where astro means star and logi means the study of. And anytime you see logi, it's the study of something. And so it's the study of the stars pertaining to nature and natural phenomena. And from there, mythology and religions were created that deified the phenomena of nature and the phenomena of the stars. However, the basis is what our ancestors saw around them. And I just want to point that out, because astrology, it doesn't matter if you're looking at it from the Chinese, from the Hindu perspective, from what they call our Western astrology, where we talk about Aries and Taurus, etc. That's considered Western astrology. It's all based off of the movement of the sun, which is in the movement of other bodies, but primarily the sun, which is why, you know, I titled this the winter solstice and the science of the sun. And so as we know, today is the winter solstice, and it officially begins on Eastern Standard Time at 8 p.m. And that's when the sun stands still, and it stands still for 3 days. And that's what the word solstice means when you look at it etymologically. Sol is Latin for sun, and stis, S-T-I-S-E, is a Latin derivative of the word stand, so stand still. And so that happens twice in the year. You have the winter solstice, which starts today, the 21st, and then it stands still 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and then it begins to rise on the 25th, which is where we derive Christmas. And then it also takes place during the summer solstice, and so that would just be the opposite. The 21st of June, standing still, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, and then the 25th is when the sun actually it is falling. It's coming from the opposite direction. So again, during the winter solstice, the sun is moving up. It's rising after 3 days, and the summer solstice, the sun is standing still for 3 days, and then it falls. And so those are important to note, because, again, it tells the ancients when they're supposed to plant and when they're supposed to sow. Winter is a time of rest. And so a lot of times you'll hear people say that during the winter solstice is a good time to rest, don't really work too much, spend time with family, just do things that are relaxing, things that are purifying. And the ancients also believed in that. As we know that Moors were all over the world. So we know that Moors were in what is called Africa today. Moors were in what is called in Asia. They were in the Americas, but they were also in Europe. And so you can see the traditions of sun worship, as they call it. You can see those traditions in many pre-Christian mythologies. For example, the solstice was celebrated in what is known as Roman culture, in that area that is known as Rome. Prior to that, our ancestors were living in that area, and they followed the patterns of the sun, just like in ancient Egypt as well. And so they practiced what it was called Saturnalia. Saturnalia is a festival that celebrated the coming of the winter solstice. Again, because it was tracking the sun. So they knew the winter solstice is coming up. Here's Saturnalia. We have to honor Saturn. And Saturn is associated with Capricorn, which is the time period of winter, the beginning of winter, and Christmas. And so, as you can see, there are correlations between the ancient and what's going on today when we study astrology. And so, for 3 days, Saturnalia would take place, and they would switch places with each other, the servants and the rich people. They would switch places with each other for purification purposes, because, to give and to do for others is a way of purifying and cleansing yourself. It's not just about you. We're here on this earth to have a larger purpose than just serving ourselves, and that's really what Pisces represents, which is typically associated with Jesus or Yeshua. And so that is a time period where we're supposed to be giving to others. And so that's where the whole concept of giving gifts actually comes from. It comes from the ancient practices of Saturnalia, except today we typically just give gifts to our family members and to our children. But really, the practice was to give gifts to those who were less fortunate than ourselves, even to the point where they would have a great feast, and those who usually would serve would get served first. And so that was Saturnalia, a means of purifying yourself in order to prepare yourself for the winter solstice. And this is just one example of a culture that celebrates the winter solstice and the manner in which they've done so. But like I said, the winter solstice is celebrated all over the world. And so that's one thing. I think a lot of people, they ask, oh, well, isn't Western astrology just pertaining to Europeans? For one, European culture is based off of our culture. In fact, we were in Europe, so that's the first thing I tell them. And then secondly, it's all about the traveling of the sun and marking the placement of the sun, so that the ancients knew when to plant and when to reap. And so that is something that's a universal principle. It doesn't matter where you are, and I really like to drive that into people's minds, because it turns a lot of people off from astrology because they think it's just a European concept, but it originated from our ancestors. So sun worship was the basis of many religions, and subsequently it's the basis of modern day society. Even Christianity. Yes? Hello?
No, go ahead, sis.
Okay. Even Christianity today is based off of the worship of the sun, because Christianity took a lot of its roots from the ancient, quote-unquote, pagan religions of ancient Rome. And those religions came from ancient Greek, and ancient Greek got their concepts from ancient Egypt, also in Mesopotamia and Samaria. So, Christianity has a lot of connections to all of those indigenous and ancient mythologies and religions. And the pyramids, for example, in ancient Egypt were oriented west and east toward the sun, and particularly in northern Egypt. And in southern Egypt, you had step pyramids that were oriented towards the sun. And they built these structures so that they could know, again, what season we were in particular. Not only do you see that in ancient Kemet, but you also see that with Stonehenge. The Stonehenge, it aligns to the horizon and where the sun hits the horizon during 2 times of the year, during the winter and the summer solstice. That's what Stonehenge was to represent. And also, even the Catholic churches, some of them served as scientific instruments. What they would be called were heliometers. For sun and meter meaning measurement, so it measured the placement of the sun. One of the Catholic churches that was built as a heliometer was called San Pedronio. And the purpose for building these, this was in Bologna, Italy. And the purpose for building this was to really create a time on their calendar to celebrate Easter, because Easter was not a Christian concept. It didn't originate from the Christians, but it originated from an ancient holiday called, it was named after a ancient goddess, and her name was Astarte, also known as Ishtar, also known as Ashtaroth. And when they said this was to signify what's called the spring or vernal equinox. So I've spoken about the solstice. So that's when the sun is standing for 3 days. That's winter and summer. And that forms the top and the bottom of a cross. Then the sides, left and right, or east and west, are marked by what are called the equinoxes. And equinox, equa meaning equal, nox meaning night. So that's when the day and the night is exactly equal. It's 12 hours during the day, 12 hours during the night. Because if you notice, as you know, winter, they say that's when the days are getting shorter, the nights are getting longer, and vice versa for the summer. But for the spring equinox or vernal equinox, and as well as the autumn or fall equinox, the day and the night are equal. And what marked that was the festival celebrated by the Ishtar, Astaroth. Also in Saxon, she was known as Ostara, and goddess of the spring. And so when the Christian church they set out to create holidays that were in accordance or that corresponded to the ancient quote-unquote pagan holidays, because it would have been easier for people to convert. It was all about getting people to be under Christian thought and Christianity, what they considered to be Christianity. They wanted to subjugate them. And so they figured, well, this is what people typically do, so we're going to take what they typically do and we're going to just bring it into our religion, and that way it'll be easy for them to transition. And that's how they came up with Christmas. Remember, this winter solstice, Christmas. That's how they came up with Easter, based on the vernal equinox. And that's how they came up with for fall. They came up with, actually in Hebrew culture, it's interesting, the Jewish New Year represents the autumn equinox, which is Rosh Hashanah. And 10 days afterwards is Yom Kippur. But Thanksgiving also correlates to the autumn equinox, as well as Halloween, which is known as All Souls Day, which is Halloween, and the day following, which is All Souls Day. And although those dates are not all falling on the same exact day, so we know that Rosh Hashanah and Halloween and All Souls Day and Thanksgiving are all not falling on the same day. What happens is what was called the precession of equinox. So that is how the constellations in the sky move. They shift every 26,000 years, and so it's at a small incremental amount that it shifts. You don't notice it on a day-to-day basis, but over many years, over centuries, you notice to the point where days are completely shifted by months. So that's why that whole range of dates that I just listed, those all signify the autumn equinox at some point in time. I remember this ancient knowledge there's no date that you could say it officially started, that astrology officially started, because it's based off of nature. However, records go back as far as the 3rd century BC. So for that whole time period, if the placement of the stars are being mapped, then you'll be able to note the differences that the fall equinox fell on in 200 AD to where it falls on today, and that's why you have the different holidays. So again, I want to drive in the fact that it's all based on nature, and these are things that we need to, the teacher aspect of me is saying we need to teach these sciences to our children because they can run societies with this knowledge. They can determine when is a good time to plant. Again, farming, we don't really have a lot of farmers, Moorish farmers that really do it as a science, as a whole. I mean, we have Moorish farmers, but I mean, as a whole, we don't have a lot of Moors going to school to learn agriculture, in particular learning it in this methodology. We used to, but we don't any longer. So this is something I encourage all my students. They all think about doing typical jobs like being a nurse or being a doctor. You get a lot of people who want to do engineering and work with computers. But I try to tell them to, whatever field you're interested in, think beyond what you are told that you can learn about that field. So if you want to be a nurse, I always encourage them, look into midwifery. If you want to do mechanics, if you want to fix cars, you should look into the alternative methods of fueling a car. Look into the alternative methods of fueling a car. Look into just doing things that will progress you and your progeny and those around you, your community, because that's what Europeans do. That's what they do for themselves. And so we have to take that science for ourselves and progress ourselves. And so astrology, as I've been talking about the nature aspect, also has the aspect that relates to people. And that's the part I think a lot of people are most interested in, that I come across, is how does astrology work when it comes to people? How do you read a chart? How do you lay a chart? How do you determine if two people go well together? And the thing I tell people is there's 3 things that you have to look at. And we look at the signs. There are 12 signs. We look at the planets. Today there are 10 planets, and that includes the sun and the moon. They're not really planets, obviously, but they're what we call luminary bodies, and they're actually the 2 strongest energies in a chart, so to speak. 2 of the strongest energies in a chart. But yes, it used to be 7, and now there's 10 planets that we look at, and then we look at the houses. And so if I took an astrological wheel, so I'm going to I have a board. Okay, I'm not an artist by any means, so I always forewarn people of that. But if I drew, this is the astrological wheel. And so remember I talked about the crosses. Y'all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so on one side we have Aries. I'm going to draw it this way. On one side we have Aries, on the other side we have Libra, because Aries, put it this way so y'all can see, because Aries represents the spring. Aries is the beginning of the year, and Libra represents the fall. Aries is the spring equinox, Libra is the fall equinox. So that's one part of the cross. Then you have at the bottom, you have Capricorn. I wrote that backwards. I keep forgetting y'all can't see that.
No, we can see it, sis. You're good.
You can? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, at the bottom you have Capricorn. At the top you have Cancer. Excuse me. Top you have Cancer. So that's the cross that they refer to in astrology. And then I'm creating houses. I'll draw the rest, but I just wanted to show you what I was doing.
Yeah.
Okay, and that equates to 12 houses. So the A is the first house, that's Aries. The second house is Taurus. The third house, Gemini. The fourth house, Cancer. The fifth house is Leo. The sixth house is Virgo. Seventh is Libra. Libra, again, remember that's when we get to the fall equinox. So I started with the first half of the year, the first 6. Then I get to the 7th and I start the second half of the year. So Libra is 7. Scorpio is the 8th house. Sagittarius, where we are today, which is the last day, is the 9th house. The 10th house is Capricorn, which will be in tomorrow. The 11th house is Aquarius, and the 12th house is Pisces, and then you start it all over again. So I wanted to indicate that's what we mean by houses. And so when I look at a chart, or when I erect a chart, it'll start like this, and then it'll be planets. So each planet has a symbol. The sun, for example, it is a circle with a dot in the middle of it. So I'll show you down there. That's the sun. And so if I have the sun in the first house, then the chart would look like that. I'm sorry, I did that backwards. If I had it in the first house here, it would look like that. Remember, that's Aries, that's the first house, the beginning, and that's where my sun is placed. Okay, so again, you look at the sign, which is Aries, the planet. Here in this case, we're looking at the sun, and the house, and the house is the first house. So those are the things that you have to look at when you lay a chart. And the first thing I will talk about are the planets, because the planets, they emanate a particular energy based on what that planet represents. And in religions, ancient religions, modern day religions, and in ancient mythologies, that was reflected even in the names of various gods. And what was reflected in particular is what particular quality that planet gives off. Mars is a warlike energy. And so Mars is the god of war in Roman mythology, but it's also the planet that is associated with war. And now look at the planet and you ask yourself why. Because Mars is a very hot planet. It's hot, the color is red, and it's like a fiery planet. And so it's actually known as like a lesser sun. It's a smaller version of the sun, and it packs a lot of energy. And that's what war is supposed to signify, the same thing that the planet Mars signifies. In Roman mythology, not only did they have the god of Mars, but they also erected statues, had temples, and they had a field called Campus Martius. And that's where the Roman soldiers would go out and they would practice and prepare for battle. And by naming it Campus Martius, they were able to draw on that energy of war, which was associated with that planet, Mars, which was known to be a very violent, turbulent planet. It has a lot of high winds, and there's a lot of, not volcanoes, but like hurricane-like activity that takes place on Mars. And so that's actually what Rome based the founding of its society on the planet Mars, which makes sense because that's what Romans were known for. They were known to be warlike people, and they invoked that energy. So again, think about this as a science that not only are you teaching your children, but you're utilizing the science yourself. If I'm getting ready to confront somebody who has done me wrong and I know I'm right about it and I don't want to have any fear, then that's the energy that I want to call on. One of the things I talked about in the classes I've been doing with Taj and Abdullah was that I think in our communities, I think we have a lot of Mars energy that's misdirected. We're very quick to fight. Mars is an emotional energy. It's aggressive. It's emotions not crying, but an angry type of emotion. And so I think we're seeing that in our society, amongst our communities, that we see a lot of our young people they're very quick to get angry before they think, which is more of a Mercury type of energy, which I'll talk about in a moment. So, you might want to call on it when you have a need for it, but I always like to say we probably need to fall back from the Mars energy. We use it too much, or maybe we need to guide it and direct it a little better. So that's Mars. But I said the two most important were the sun and the moon, which is what a lot of the religions are mainly based off of, the sun and the moon. Christianity is based off of the sun. The sun, and the word Christian, it comes from, the word Christ comes from Krishna, which was also a sun deity in Hindustan. And the word Yahweh, okay. And the word Yahweh, it's been traced that it relates to the word Hashem. And so the two were used interchangeably, Hashem, which is Hebrew, and Hebrew for the cause, like the first cause. And Shemesh is the sun. So when you add ESH onto the end of a word, in ancient Hebrew, it was to make it almost like an adjective. Just like in English, really, if you add ISH to the end of a word, it makes it an adjective. So I could say that this is, give me a word with ISH. Now I can't think of one since I'm trying to. ISH at the end of it.
Foolish.
Foolish. Moorish. Of course. Moorish. So Moor is Moor would be, the noun. But Moorish, ISH, makes it an adjective. It's describing something. The same thing could be said for Hebrew. ESH added on to the end, it makes it it gives it a certain quality. So when we say Shemesh is the sun, then when you say Shem is the first cause, they're saying that the first cause is the sun. And Shemesh is just describing that first cause. And so we see that Yahweh, which is where Yeshua comes from, which is where Jesus comes from, all of those relate to the sun, as well as Christ and Krishna. That relates to the sun as well. And you can see that just the naming of the religion itself is edifying the sun. Just like in Islam, that edifies the moon. One of the ancient moon gods was Ina, also called Sin, S-I-N, Sin. This was a pre-Islamic moon god. And that is what Islam was founded on. Islam, just like Christianity, was founded on ancient mythological and religious concepts that were based on nature, but it was for a particular area, the Mesopotamia area. You have a lot of Semitic cultures that influence Islam, and Sumerian culture influences Islam. Not so much like the Greek and the Roman cultures, which influence Christianity. But I really like to drive that home too, because I think a lot of Moors think that Christian versus Islam is better than Christianity, and they think that in a connotative sense, and connotative meaning a shaded meaning an additional meaning, not based on what it truly means. And so the connotative meaning behind Christianity and Islam is the dogma that we see today, but the true meaning of Christianity and Islam is just the science and the study and the worship of nature. And so I just want to point that out, that both Christianity and Islam are religions that came from what are considered pagan religions, or what are considered pagan religions by those two religions themselves. So getting back to the astrology, though, you have the sun, which represents your vital and your life force, your vitality, excuse me, and your life force. And so when people say I'm a Cancer, I'm a Gemini, or I'm a whatever sign you say, they're really just referring to the sun, their sun sign. And that just means, where was the sun when you were born? What astrological sign was the sun in? And the sun, the signs come from constellations. Constellations are bodies of stars that come together to form particular images that we see in nature, and those, like, mostly animals, because the zodiac, which is what the constellations are, there's 12 zodiac and 12 constellations, and majority of the zodiac are animals. So that's where we get your sun sign, meaning what constellation was the sun in. And the sun then emanates its energy through the constellation, and that's how you take on the energy of whatever that sign is. So me in particular, my birthday is July 7th, and I'm a Cancer. That means the sun was in the constellation of Cancer when I was born, and the sun emanated that energy, and so I took on qualities of Cancer. That's my vitality and my life force. And what that usually means is that we, no matter what other planets or things you have in your chart, the sun is like what you strive towards. That's what you strive to be like in your life. You may not always be like that, but that's what you want to be like, and you want to be like the higher qualities of the sun. So again, if I'm a Cancer, one thing that's noted for Cancers is that they're very nurturing. They're the mothers of the zodiac. They're emotional. They have a lot of psychic energy. I wouldn't say intuition, because my understanding of intuition is more of a mental capacity, but Cancers are more emotional, and they can kind of feel what's going on without someone having to say anything, and they're really good counselors. On the flip side, they can be really moody, because again, they have that emotional part about them, and like if they are slighted, they draw into their shell, and it's very hard to get them out of their bad mood. They'll get out when they're ready, kind of brood in it. And so those are the qualities that you may see in a person who has their sun sign, but that's what they're going to kind of grow towards and throughout their lifetime. Then you have the moon. The moon is also a luminary body. The moon itself doesn't have its own light. It's just a reflection of the sun. And so but the moon represents your soul in astrology. And so that's like your true self, where you feel most comfortable. When people really, really get to know you, like if you invite people to your home, and not just for a party, but I mean to just relax, maybe spend a weekend at your home, then they're going to get to see who you really are. And that will be the moon. And so if your sun and your moon are not in good aspects, that means the angle that they make. If they don't make a harmonious angle to one another, then you might have a hard time in life being other than your moon. So remember, I said you're striving towards your sun, but you might have a difficult time reaching that if those two planets are not harmonious. When we say harmonious, when we say harmonious, we are talking about the signs. So we're talking about the planets in a particular sign. Do they go well together? And we can tell that by the elements. There are 4 elements in nature, 4 basic elements in nature, and there are 4 basic elements that all of the 12 signs fall into. You have fire, you have earth, you have air, and you have water. I'll put that up. Fire, earth, air, water. And so for fire, you have Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius are all fire signs. Then for earth, you have Taurus, Virgo, and what we're approaching, Capricorn, are all earth signs. For air, you have Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius are all air signs. And for water, you have Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces are all water signs. And each of the elements pertain, when you think about how the elements act in nature, that's how you should think of that particular element in astrology. So Earth, is very stable. We stand on the earth. That's how we're able to that's what supports us. That's the foundation. So earth signs tend to be those type of people that are reliable and stable and dependable, because that's a reflection of the element. Whereas water signs, they like to be stable, they like to be reliable because they're so loving, but I mean, it's hard for them because they just flow. They just go wherever, kind of, because the air, the air kind of dictates where the water goes. Even though it's earth that contains the water, the air dictates the direction. So if the wind is blowing in a certain direction, that's the way the water is going to flow for the most part. So that lets you know that water, they're not the most reliable because they're just going to blow with the wind, unfortunately. So when you think about people and their astrological makeup, that don't be upset when certain people don't do certain things or they do certain things, because it's something that's kind of expected of them if you understand their makeup. But yes, we were talking about how the signs, how two planets relate, the sun and the moon. So here are my elements. Since there are 4 elements, 2 of them go well together with each other, the fire and the air, and on the other end, the water and the earth. That's what we call complementary, because they tend to balance each other out. And so when we say the sun and the moon, my sun and my moon, do they go well together? If I have a fire sun but a water moon, it might not be the best, because it'll probably, depending on which signs they are and depending on the rest of your chart, one will either put the fire out, the water will put the fire out. So you may be naturally a really, you're not shy, you're an extrovert, you're a risk taker, you like the spotlight, but your watery energy, which makes you kind of reserved and shy, particularly if you're a Cancer, might draw into your shell, then it kills all of your opportunities because you're afraid to take a risk. Whereas if the fire is weaker, if the fire is stronger and the water is weaker, then the water may overboil because the fire may stimulate it too much, and then it will evaporate. It could potentially evaporate. And so knowing that, again, helps you interact with people, and it helps you with yourself. And that was the main point. If you have a fire sun and you have an earth moon, you could potentially be putting out your fire through your earth, because your earth requires structure, where your fire kind of just wants to take off and try new things. Those two ideas, they clash with one another. Or your fire may set your earth on fire. And so you may be trying your hardest to be a very dependable, stable person, very organized, but all your desires to try new things and to be adventurous, they kind of burn away at that organization that you have. And so that's just for the sun and the moon. And remember, I told you those are 2 of the most important planets that you want to look at if you're ever looking at your chart. And I'll start with the planets, and I'll come back to the rising sign. So we'll go through the planets. Then you have Mercury. Mercury is the planet that represents the mind, and it represents thought and communication, expression. And Mercury in astrology and mythology, ancient mythology, in ancient Roman mythology, was considered also a god relating to like merchants. Because if you hear that word, Mercury and merchant, they have the same root in Latin, which is merx, M-E-R-X, which has to do with commerce and trade. And now all that to me relates to thought and mind, because when it comes to trade, you have to, when it comes to the business world, when it comes to dealing with finances and business, you have to be quick on your feet. You have to be very wise. The 2 signs that go with with Mercury, Virgo, and Gemini are just that. They're very quick thinking signs. They're very analytical. They're very rational type energies. So Mercury is intellect and it's communication, but particularly it relates to trade, finance, and merchants. And they would call on, in ancient Rome, they would call on Mercury before they would do any kind of business dealing or any kind of trade. So, you know, when I do my charts, I actually put in the, what's it called? I actually put in the Hebrew angels. I don't put it in any other language than Hebrew. I put in the angels, which are nothing but angles. And so that helps to draw down the energy that I want or that my client may want based on whatever's going on in their chart. Okay, so Mercury. Then we go to Venus. Venus, which means desire. The root of Venus, V-E-N, it means desire. And it is the goddess of beauty and love in ancient Roman culture. Venus has been linked to Ishtar. Venus has been linked to Isis, which is Aset. Venus has been linked to Ashtaroth, like I spoke of earlier. And Venus is really relegated in Indo-European culture. You see the Venus figurines, and those are the women those are the figurines that are shaped. They're, you know, they have the shape of what they used to call the Hottentot Venus. If anyone remembers the Hottentot Venus, the women of Southern Africa who had a very pronounced backside and hips. So they were very curvaceous. However, in ancient European cultures, they had Venus figurines who had that same shape, and they would lay them by the burials of the matriarchs of their society because they felt that these figurines would guide them through the afterlife. So it's just so funny that, you know, their ancient, well, it's not theirs because it's ours. However, these people who are claiming Europe are denying that there are these figurines and there are other visual symbols of this same body type that they tried to ridicule during like the 18th century. So you can see evidence of this woman figure throughout the world, but it's just particularly interesting that it was in the European cultures. And the reason why they were so shapely is because they were supposed to represent the woman's ability to give birth. So Venus and the moon are both planets that are associated with women. And particular, you know, Venus is more so the beauty aspect of it, but again, since it's woman, it also relates to childbirth. And the moon also relates to childbirth and pregnancy, menses. In fact, I'm going to take a step back to the moon. The moon itself means to measure. It's the same, it has the same root as month, which means to measure, and it also has the same root as menses, which is like when a woman is menstruating or when she's on her cycle. All of those words have the same Indo-European root or the same root and family of languages. And so you could see that relationship between the woman, the moon, and measurement for what? What are they measuring but the cycle of menstruation and a time to become pregnant so that they could continue the progeny. So they really relegated the woman in ancient societies, and you could see that in a reflection of their mythologies. A lot of ancient goddesses were turned to gods when patriarchal mindsets began to take root. But, you know, I just wrote an article for, Abdullah is putting out another paper, and it's a paper for women. It's for the Eastern Stars. And so I wrote a feature article, and it's about the matriarch and matriarchal societies. And one of the reasons why societies were matriarchal to begin with, and that therefore they relegated the woman and deified her as the moon. The reason was because they didn't have that connection between, they didn't make the connection between sexual relations and pregnancy. They didn't realize that sexual relations cause pregnancy. And so they would think that life and progeny just came from the woman. And therefore they would relegate her because of that. And, you know, they were in awe of her amazing powers to be able to give birth. And just like the women were able to give birth, they kind of gave those same qualities that of relegating the woman. They gave that to plant life as well. So you see a lot of plants are deified, more so in American mythology than in ancient African or even European mythologies. But the plants were relegated because they followed the cycles of the moon as well. So plant life, a lot of times you see the moon relating to plant life, to women, to pregnancy. And again, like I said originally, it relates to who you really are as a person. When a woman gets pregnant, the first thing that develops, if you want to say astrologically, is the soul, is the moon. So that's why you can say that's who you truly are. After you get your shell, your casing, your physical body, that's an aspect astrologically too. That's called your rising sign. But after you get that, that's what people see when they first meet you. But deep down, that soul that was first made upon conception, the moment that you were conceived, that soul stays intact throughout your entire life and even after your life. You know, your soul never dies. So is the sun and the moon very, very important. Mercury, that's the mind. Venus, love, and that relates to women. For men, if you're ever looking in your chart and you want to know more about your love life, you should look at Venus. Look at the placement of Venus, look at the sign of Venus, and look at what house it's in. Women, if you want to know about love, you should really look at Mars, because Mars is more of a masculine energy. Remember, as I said earlier, that's warlike. And Mars, we seek that energy. As women, we want that, not aggressive, but because we want it more tamed. Not tamed, that's a bad word. We want it more disciplined. We want that assertiveness, but we want it to be more disciplined. And so that's what that Mars energy can represent when you evolve it. You work on yourself and you evolve that energy within yourself, and that's what we gravitate towards. Just like for Venus, as a woman, we have a certain beauty, a softness to us, a sensual nature about us, and that's what Venus represents. And on the flip side, Venus on the negative end can be very lazy. It can be a very lazy energy because you just want pleasure. And remember, I said Venus means desire, so all you're looking for is enjoyment. And so we see that a lot too, where you have some women, they might call them, you have some women who just want to enjoy going places and eating fine dinners and etc. But there's that other side of the womanly aspect that they got to show, which is being soft and being flexible and being able to just be loved. You can't just take. You have to also give, which takes me to the next planet, which is Jupiter. That's the planet that we've been most influenced by for the past 30 days, because Sagittarius and Jupiter are correlated, and Jupiter is abundance. And so when you give, you can receive abundantly. So it's also abundance and benevolence. And in mythology, Jupiter was known as a father sky god, and he gave birth to many other gods in the Roman pantheon. And so that's why you consider him to be an abundant type energy, because the sky is forever expanding. The sky, there's no stopping to where the sky ends. There's no limit rather to where the sky ends. And also Jupiter as a planet itself is a very, very large planet, and it's very magnetic. It has a very large magnetic field. again, which can draw things to you. That's why you can call on the energies of Jupiter if you're ever trying to expand what you have. But first you have to know, in order to expand, you have to give. And so when if you find that you're not receiving based on how much you give, so that could mean that you give too much. There's also that aspect of it where Jupiter can be too giving, and that's where the next planet comes into play, which is Saturn. And Saturn is kind of the opposite of Jupiter. Saturn is limitation, and Saturn is also structure, and it's also time, because time forces us to have a structure. I would say that Saturn is the basis of calendar making, because calendars are nothing but demarcations of time. When a particular time period ends, whether we call that time period an hour, a minute, a second, a month, but it signifies a definite beginning and a definite end. You don't see that with Jupiter, but you definitely see that with the planet Saturn. And that's where Capricorn comes in. Capricorn, the energy that we're coming into now, is a very structured, very disciplined energy. Sometimes they can be too structured. I mean, I have a lot of Capricorn friends because they're my opposite. I tend to attract a lot of Capricorn. And I find that they are by the book, and they're afraid to do anything outside of the law that's been given to them. Not true and natural law, but just the law that's been presented to them. Then you have, those are the first 7 planets. Remember I told you originally there were 7 planets that were looked at until around the 1600s. The first of the outer lying planets that were discovered was Uranus, which it represents explosive energy, revolutions, revolting, anything that is new, innovative, anything that is humanitarian as well. Because, you know, they say Uranus is ruled by Aquarius. And a lot of people know about the age of Aquarius, and that a lot of the hidden knowledges of Pisces will be revealed in the age of Aquarius, and that's what we are coming to now. And even with this whole hacking, the hacking of the Sony emails, that is very Aquarian, revealing that which has been hidden for many, many years. The basis of Sony has probably been on these mindsets that the Sony execs have, with people learning about what Illuminati really is, and that's the illumination of the mind, and that's a scientific principle, versus just being afraid and thinking that it's, you know, these people who control all the strings of society. That idea is what we mean by, we say age of Aquarius, to reveal that which has been hidden for the benefit of humanity. So that's why Aquarius and Uranus is considered a planet of compassion. It's a humanitarian planet because they're going to destroy anything that has been built on a lie, and they do it for the benefit of the people. And so Uranus also has that, it represents like organizations, energies of movements, and the energy of organizations are all Uranus. And then you have Neptune. Neptune is what rules Pisces, and Neptune is what we call cosmic consciousness. So you know the concept that, you know, we're all here for a purpose that's bigger than ourselves. And I always say that when people learn themselves astrologically, then they will better understand what that larger purpose is. And a lot of the things that we're going through today, I think have to do with people not really stepping up to the plate astrologically and doing the things that their chart indicates that they need to do. And so when you come into cosmic consciousness, you're aware of that, and you feel no qualms about that, because it's just like when the story of Jesus. You know, Jesus knew in the narrative, Jesus knew ahead of time that he was going to transition. He was considered to be a quote unquote sacrifice in the mythology, but was still willing to do so because that was for a greater good. That's what Pisces represents, because you're motivated by the highest frequency that you can be motivated by. However, on the flip side, because there's always a positive and a negative to a planet or a sign, The negative side of Neptune would be possessionship and being possessed by drugs or alcohol. You know, a lot of people with a lot of Piscean energy, they suffer from alcoholism or drug usage. You find a lot of Piscean energies in hospitals, and you find it in jails. So all of that will be considered Pisces, which is Neptune. And the last planet is Pluto, which is relating to Scorpio, and that's the planet of transformation. It's the planet of the underworld. It's related to Hades, because, you know, to transform, you have to start from the lowest point and draw yourself up all the way to the highest point and rid yourself of those negative energies that are within you. That's what Kundalini rising is, and that's what Pluto and Scorpio represent, the Kundalini rising. And as it rises up the 33 vertebrae of your spine, and it finally comes up and it hits the pineal gland, which makes you enlightened, which makes you an illuminated one, hence Illuminati. And relating it back to the sun, I read an article the other day in India, when they do was considered sun worship, but really they're stretching their bodies. You know, the movement of the cobras, when you stretch your body up like this, you lay down on the ground, but you stretch your neck and your top torso up, and they're stretching towards the sun because they're trying to get the pineal to be activated by the sun through yogic practices, which is something our ancient ancestors did. And because they know that the pineal, at the center of the pineal, is a little internal sun. You know, the Eye of Heru, the pineal is shaped like the Eye of Heru. Well, in ancient Kemetic mythology, Heru was considered an aspect of the sun. So the Eye of Heru is the sun, which is the same shape as the pineal, which is why it's activated by the sun. And that's an ancient science that when I read the article, I believe it was written from a Christian perspective, because the author was indicating that this was pagan worship. But what the person didn't really note, with the person in the who was arguing against it, there was a person in the article who had a quote, who was arguing against the Christian author, and he stated that this was actually from ancient Hindu stone practices that are run deep within their culture. That was his argument. I didn't think it was very strong. All he had to say was, scientifically, the sun, which emanates vitamins and it emanates energies that our body uses for vitality, they were just simply trying to capture that in one of the strongest points of their body. I mean, it's just simple, basic, everyday science. It's not supposed to be something to spook you out or to be mystic. That whole mystic thing, that has to do with the age of Pisces, but we're moving out of that to the age of Aquarius, and that's why we seek to break these things down. Okay, so we talked about the planets. Then you have the 12 signs. All you have to know about the signs is that they're each an animal. Aries is a ram, and you can, if you just look this up in Latin, you'll see that Aries means ram. Taurus means bull. Gemini means twins. So that's one that's not an animal. Cancer means crab. Leo means lion. Virgo means virgin. That's also one that's not a animal. Libra means scales. Scorpio means scorpion. Sagittarius refers to the centaur. Capricorn means goat. Aquarius means water bearer. And Pisces means fish. So you study the names of each one of them, you'll know what the animal is. The animals, then again, going back to what I said about nature, the animals just are a reflection of what that sign gives off. So Aries is the ram, and that's why Aries is a combative energy. That's why Aries is the energy of war. Taurus is a bull. And, you know, the bull, you know, when they get mad, they don't charge at you right away, but they're going to take a minute to kind of like, you know, flare their nostrils up, kind of kicked up a little dust. You know, they're getting themselves ready to prepare to battle. And Taurus energies are just like that. They're very calm, patient, loving energies. But when you make them upset, they're going to charge at you. Gemini, the twins, all over the place, left, right, here, there. You know, I want to do this. Next minute, they don't, because they're the twins and they can see the both sides to anything. That's what makes them rational, though, because they don't bring how they feel into a situation, but they bring what they can see. Cancer, the crab. You know how a crab, it moves left to right before it moves forward? That's how cancers are. People say that it makes them indecisive. That is definitely the case, but before they make a move, you know, they're really just sitting and contemplating, and then they move forward, and they're very strong about what they feel. They have those grips, like the same grips of a crab, and they have a very tough shell, and they can withdraw themselves into their shell if they feel like someone is offending them, because they're very sensitive, just like a crab outside of its shell is very soft. I mean, you can see this for all the signs. So I encourage you in your astrological studies, look at each of the signs, look at each of the meanings of the signs in terms of just the name alone will open up a lot for you, more so than reading a whole book about each individual sign. The centaur, for example, that's the Sagittarius, half man, half beast. So that shows you that, you know, Sagittarius has a lot of low desires. They have a lot of humanistic desires. However, they're always seeking to be their higher selves. That's through the shooting of that arrow. They're always seeking to reach the heavens, where again, so above, so below. Reflection of what's above, what's below is what they see within, what they want to see within themselves. In this, as they journey on this earth plane. If you see Aquarius, the water bearer, because Aquarius is not the emotions, but he is the one that controls the emotions of the people, because he's the wind. He's an air sign, so he's the wind. He controls the direction if people feel good, or if they feel if they feel plagued down by things that are going on in society. Aquarius can dictate that. Aquarius also is, remember I said that it was innovations. Aquarius can really set the tone for a society through the innovations that it creates. Think of Steve Jobs, who was an Aquarius, and he created the Apple, the Mac, the iPhone, all of which I think has really kind of revolutionized the way that we look at technology in our society when it comes to cell phones and when it comes to laptops, etc. So they can effectuate change in society and the way that people feel through their words and through the things that they create as well. So like I said again, look at all the planets. And then look at all the names of the signs to study, you know, the characteristics of each sign. And when you take a planet and you put it in a sign, that will tell you an aspect of yourself. So we've talked about sun, we've talked about moon. Let's talk about Saturn. So Saturn is discipline and structure. Saturn, wherever Saturn is in my chart, represents how I need to develop discipline and how I need to develop structure. If I have Saturn in Scorpio, that means I need to develop discipline and structure regarding my feelings, but not just my everyday feelings, but like those deep-seated feelings that you don't want to share with anybody. You have to learn how to overcome those. And if you don't do so by a certain time period, because that's when Saturn, it's called Saturn return. If you don't do so by a certain time period, you're likely to face the same challenges over and over again. And so that's called your Saturn return based on the placement of Saturn. Whereas Jupiter can tell you where you are most likely to expand and receive and to have great benefit in life. They could also tell you your career, because it's like your path. It guides you. If I look at Venus, we talked about Venus and love life, and Mars for love life for a woman. But if I look at Venus, I can also determine my finances, because Venus represents love and it also represents finances. So you look at if I have Venus in Taurus, very good. I'm very good with finances. You know, I save my money, I plan, I typically spend my money on family and home. If I have Venus in Scorpio, I probably lose money very easily, although I can get money through inheritance easily. Like if I have somebody in my family pass away, then I'm likely to receive that finance. But generally speaking, I'm not the best with finances if I have a Venus and Scorpio placement. If I look at Mars, if I have Aries and Mars, it makes me very aggressive, you know, because that's the home of Mars. Mars is your physical effort and your physical force, and Aries is aggressive energy. So I put the two together, my physical force is aggressive. But if I have it in Capricorn, if my Mars is in Capricorn, well, let's put those two together. It's like a mathematical equation. Mars is your physical force and your drive, and Capricorn is structure and discipline. So Mars and Capricorn is a good placement because it's your physical force and your ability to fight and defend, but it's more structured than your typical Aries and Mars would be. So you look at how those things combine with one another, and that is insight into how to read a chart. You have to look at all of the planets, but if you're just starting off, I suggest you look at 3 aspects. First, look at your sun. Secondly, look at your moon. And then lastly, you look at what's called your rising sign. And so earlier I mentioned rising sign, but I didn't really get into it. And so this is, going back to the chart, remember I said the houses. We talked about planets and signs. Here's houses. And so where this A is, Aries, that's the first house. Whatever sign is right there at the line of the first house, that's called your rising sign. And that indicates how you come off to people. It indicates your the first impression people have of you when you meet them. Sometimes some people may come off very defensive, and then when you really get to know them, they're just very peaceful, loving people. But they don't come across that way because maybe their rising sign does not relate very well or have a good angle to their moon or to their sun. When you are conceiving children, you can dictate whether your children themselves have compatible Trinity, Holy Trinity. That's what it's called, your rising, your sun, or your moon. If you can, I always tell people, I want my children to be da-da-da-da sign. And they're like, well, that's crazy. You should just accept whatever you get. And I'm like, I understand that, but you know, people, you can plan out when you create a child. I mean, we know the science of how children come to be conceived, so you can plan to do those activities that conceive the child. Like, that's a discipline. That's a science that, remember I told you, we need to be more logical. We need to employ more Mercury energy, which is thought. We need to employ more Saturn energy, which is discipline within ourselves, to create the society that we want to see. And we can do that through our children, through the children that we birth. But even so, if you didn't do that, that's fine. You know, all of us, our parents didn't do that, but we're still here. So what do? If you find that you have elements that don't go very well together, you have to try to be the element that would alleviate that. Most times it's the opposite. That's called the science of opposition. So one example for me, Scorpio. I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart, and it's not necessarily good with my Leo. I have a Leo energy and I have a Scorpio energy. It creates a square. Leo and Scorpio are 90 degrees apart. That means they square each other and they cause friction. So how do I alleviate that? Well, I look at what's opposite of that sign. So what's the opposite of Leo but Aquarius? What's the opposite of Scorpio but Taurus? So to alleviate some of that tension in your chart, you can call on those energies that are the opposite of you. or if you have what we call a stellium, that means you have too much energy in one sign, then you want to call on the opposite energy to, balance that sign out. Okay, so again, planets and signs we've kind of covered, and then last but not least, the houses. The houses here are, there's 12 that go around, as I indicated, and each house just indicates a certain part of your life. So the planet is the type of energy. The house is the part of your life, and the sign kind of explains how that energy is going to play out in your chart. Okay, the first house is your physical sense, meaning how you move. Also your body. And so when you do medical astrology, you really look at the first house and you look at the ascendant. But it's also how you move and how you may work out, how you may exercise. That aspect of your life is all the first house. The best way to study the houses is that just like there's 12 signs, there's 12 houses. The houses and the signs go together. So if I know what Cancer means if I know what Cancer means, then I know what the fourth house is. Cancer is that energy of the mother and home. Well, the fourth house represents your home. It also represents legacy. It also represents the legacy that you're going to leave on this earth. When you look at the 8th house, remember I told you the 8th house, the 8th sign was Scorpio. And Scorpio, when I mentioned finances, I said Scorpio had to do with inheritance. Why? Because Scorpio, which is ruled by Pluto, it has to do with death and rebirth, because death and transformation go hand in hand. And so that the death of a family member is one aspect of Scorpio, but the transformation through the inheritance of finances is the other aspect of Scorpio. And when you look in the 8th house indicates, anything from any type of shared resources, as well as indicating if you may inherit from anybody in your lifetime. If somebody may pass away and you inherit from them. If you have a lot of 8th house energy, or if you have a particular meaningful planet in the 8th house, you might have lost a parent at a young age or lost a brother or sister at a young age. But particularly if you lost a parent, you also may have gained some kind of inheritance from that parent at a young age as well. So all of that you can see in somebody's chart. And so each house, you really just start by looking at the sign. It'll tell you what part of your life that house represents. Then look at the planets in each house, and you'll start to see patterns. Most charts, they have patterns to them. So I can look at 5 different planets, but they all might tell me the same thing, because the universe doesn't make a mistake. It's like a birthmark. It's a birthmark, and birthmarks are no mistake, but they are exactly what they're supposed to be, based on the concept of your previous life, your past life. Your chart is really based on your past life and the choices that you made, and you having to heal from certain things that you may have chosen to do in your past life. They will come up in your current day chart as well. And the ancients knew all of this. They knew the science of the sun relating to nature, and they knew the science of the sun and the planets relating to people. And when it comes to relationships, they also knew that the sun represents male energy and the moon represents mother energy, woman energy. And so they would look at those 2 planets, and it would help to determine, are these 2 people compatible? In Hindustan and in present day Hindustan, which is India, they still use that practice, and they still do arranged marriages, but those marriages, what they don't tell you, are based off of astrology. Because Hindustan or India is very big in astrology, and it's considered Hindu astrology. They say it's different, but all that's different is the names of the planets. Like Buddha is the same as Mercury in our planet, in our astrology system, where let's see. Yeah, Buddha is the same as Mercury, and you have Jupiter is the same as Guru. And so, because Guru is a guide, remember Jupiter, as I said earlier, has to do with abundance. It's guiding you towards abundance. It's guiding you towards being able to receive abundantly and being able to give in return based on that abundance. And so, you know, if they're doing that ancient science and it's a modern day practice, it's something that we also need to look to. And not to say that, you know, whoever you're currently with, you shouldn't be with them because you didn't do a chart before you got with them. But it's more to say, if you're having a particular reoccurring issue, if you have a particular reoccurring issue between you and your mate, you and your child, you can do this science for you and your children. If you have a particular reoccurring issue, then you might want to look at your chart and see why that is the case, and then want to go on to do what you need to do to alleviate it. So when I do the charts, like I said, I include that. I include the names of the angels, and angels are nothing but angles that tell you what energy you're calling upon. So for like Taurus is Asmodel. So I use that one a lot because I have a lot of Scorpio and it helps me to balance out. Or for if right now we're getting ready to go into Capricorn. So Capricorn is Haniliel. And so you call on that if you want to draw on that energy, or you call on the opposite, Muriel, if you want to draw on the opposite energy to help you kind of balance it off a little bit. So I like to teach the science because it's great to do people's charts, but I want people to understand it for themselves as well and be able to refer back to their chart. If they're going through something on a particular day, they can always look and say, well, this may be why, and they understand it themselves. It's something that needs to be a household tool that we all need to study. So I see that I have about 30 minutes left. I want to pause for a moment and see if there are any questions before I move forward.
What's the cusp about? Anybody born on the cusp? Can you explain the cusp?
Yes, the cusp is between two signs. So, in fact, anybody whose birthday is today or tomorrow would have been born on the cusp. If you look at a chart, it'll tell you, like, it'll say somebody was born and they are Aries 7 degrees. They're Aries but 7 degrees. That means, okay, you take a sign. A sign has 30 degrees in it. And so 7 degrees would be 7 days into the sign. 28 degrees would be 28 days into the sign. 29 degrees is the last day of the sign. And then 0 begins the sign. So if you're at a 28 degrees, 29 degrees, 0, or 1 degree of a sign, you're considered to be on a cusp. That means you have both energies. So today, if your birthday is today, if it was yesterday, tomorrow, or a day from tomorrow, a day from today, then you're displaying energies of Sagittarius, which makes you, adventure-seeking. It makes you a very benevolent, just kind, generous person. People love to be around you. You tend to be really jovial. But on the flip side, Sagittarius can be very blunt. I mean, they say what they want to say, and they don't really care if it hurts people's feelings or not. They're like that arrow. They just shoot forward, as they say, no filter. But unless there's something like making that negative aspect of Sagittarius come out, they're generally just really friendly and jovial people. But on the other hand, they wrestle with that nature of themselves. Oh, I'm sorry, another thing about Sagittarius, they're also very optimistic. And so they tend to be like, oh yeah, this is gonna work out, it's no problem, it's fine. But the next door energy, Capricorn, is like, man, everything has to be in place. I have to know what's going on. I need to have, notes. I need to have organization. I need to have structure. I need to have a plan. So people on the cusp actually have a difficult time, or if you have a lot of cusp energy within your chart, because two signs next door to each other are inherently contradictory. They don't have the same sign. They don't have the same element at all. And there's another thing that they don't have the same of, which I failed to mention, and I'll talk about it in a moment. But they're just not the same. They're just not the same. So people on the cusp, they have a hard time maintaining both energies, which is why the science of opposites really is important for them. So if I'm a Sagittarius Capricorn cusp, then I really need to rely on the energy of Gemini, which is the opposite of Sagittarius, and Cancer, which is the opposite of Capricorn. And that'll help to alleviate some of the tension that I'm feeling. But yeah, I would say people, that's called a critical degree. There are certain degrees in your chart that are naturally going to cause friction or tension. If you have a degree that at the end of a sign, so if you're like 28 or 29 degrees, I look at that as you're kind of being held back from moving forward. If the signs are evolutionary, so like Aries is the beginning, it's the baby, it's the infant, it's ego, it's all about me. And then once you go all the way around, you have Pisces, which is, it's not about me, but it's about a bigger purpose, right? If you look at it as evolutionary, then being at 28, 29 degrees, it keeps you stuck at the end of a sign, which is to say you didn't fully gain the lessons of that sign. So I'm going to keep you here in this lifetime until you learn those lessons. If you're at the beginning, it's kind of like, yes, here's a new journey that you're embarking upon. It's going to be a little rocky for you because this is a new territory, new terrain. Versus like if I'm in the middle of a sign, it's a little bit more firmly planted. It's a little bit more, you know, I've been navigating through this for some soul centuries, and I'm really starting to get it. I feel more comfortable. But if I'm at the beginning, this is just totally out of my field of familiarity. Like your soul can recognize that. Does that answer your question?
So you're saying if you're born on a cusp, you're predominantly all those signs that you're born with?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're both of those signs, yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Makes sense to me.
Any other questions?
My birthday was on the 18th.
The 18th of
December.
this month?
Yeah, last like Thursday, like it's past.
Okay, yeah.
What kind of crowds am I to expect?
Say that one more time, please.
Like, what am I to expect in I don't know, it's like a second. The 18th. What am I to expect in my, I guess, in this next cusp or in Capricorn?
You gotta give her the year you're going to.
Yeah.
Okay, 76.
Close to it. Yeah.
76? Oh, you want me to look at your, are you saying you want me to look at your chart?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Now normally when you lay a chart, you can actually physically lay the chart. You get an ephemeris and you look up the year you were born and you would say, okay, in 1980, on July 7th, the moon was in Capricorn. And that's it. And it was at Capricorn at this many degrees based on the time I was born, right? That's how you lay a chart. But however, thanks to modern technology, we can also erect charts online and it'll erect it instantly like that. But I still do the interpretation. So I just want everyone to be clear. What I'm getting ready to do is I'm getting ready to put in the birthday in the chart.
Is this like a natal
generator?
Chart?
Pardon?
Is this like a natal chart? The chart.
Yes, it's a natal chart. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And do you know the year?
76.
I mean the time. Sorry.
12 a.m.
12 a.m.
I'm a twin.
Okay. So when I put this in, so you already know your sun sign, right?
Yeah, Sagittarius.
What's your? Tell everyone your sun sign.
Sun sign. I don't know. Sagittarius. That's my sign.
Yes, Sagittarius. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
No,
Sagittarius.
My bad.
All right, and so the 18th. And I also have to know the location. So when you do a chart, you got to know the date of birth, the location of birth, and the time. If people don't know the time, the chart can still be erected, but the closer to the time you are, the more accurate your reading will be. So, yes. Do you know? Can you tell me the location?
Toronto,
Toronto. Toronto. All right. And I have a website where you can enter in this information and get a reading done. It's called moorastrology.com. It's connected to the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, 2F, out of Delaware, the territory that's called Delaware, where Cujo and I first met in person. And the sister and brother is a Messiah, Grand Sheik Messiah, and Grand Sheik is Crystal. They have a website called holymoorishemporium.org, and that's where you can order my charts. So you can go to their website to order the charts, holymoorishemporium.org, and on my website I have a blog and just general information about astrology. So anybody who is interested in that, please look into that. And I would tell you to first start off with your Holy Trinity. A lot of people get the advanced chart and they get the natal chart even is good, but the advanced chart, they go for the advanced chart, but there's a lot of information in it. I would start with just the basic Holy Trinity, and that might, spark you to do more research on your own. So, let's see. It's coming up now. Pause it. We'll do this one. All right. Go to the chart. Come on. All right, come on, show me the chart. Oh, okay, I see it went off. Okay, click here to show me the chart. Oh man, it's being slow. Sorry, my internet connection's being a little slow. Give me 1 second and it should pull up momentarily. Please select. Done. I don't want experiments. Here we go, natal chart. Alrighty. Okay, so it's showing me that your sun is 26 degrees Sagittarius and your moon is 16 degrees Scorpio. All these Scorpio moons. Okay, my moon is in Scorpio. So when you have a moon sign, any sign rather, it has a home planet. The home for the moon is Cancer. The home for Mars is Aries. The home for Saturn is Capricorn. Every planet has a sign that it feels most comfortable in, and that's why they call it their home. Then, of course, there's the opposite of that sign, which they will call the fall. So you got a home position and you have a fall position. Then you have an exalted position, which is, it's even better than the home position. It'd be like if you're on vacation. And then you have your detriment position, and that's the opposite of the exalted position. So again, when I say detriment and exaltation, all of that refers to where is the planet, what sign is the planet in, what constellation is the planet in. Some constellations are great for planets, some constellations are terrible for planets. All right, so the home of the moon is Cancer. So here's a quick test. What will be the fall of the moon? If the home is Cancer, what's the fall? Capricorn, right. Meaning Cancer's the moon is great in Cancer because it's a nurturing energy, and Capricorn is not so good because it's holding back the flow of emotions. The exalted position of the moon is Taurus because it's home. It's home and comfort and family. What will be the fall of the moon then? I mean, not fall, I'm sorry, the detriment. So the opposite of the exaltation. If Taurus is exalted, where everything is even better than Cancer, what will be even worse than Capricorn?
Sagittarius?
Scorpio. Okay. Scorpio is the opposite of Taurus. And that's where your moon is. Okay, so I have that same moon placement, but it's very hard for Scorpio moon because they go through a lot of ups and downs in their life, and it really depends on where the moon is in their chart. So for you, yours is actually like the end of the second house. It looks like it's touching the third house, meaning, well, it's still second house. So maybe like anything relating to finances, or maybe you might have a lot of ups and downs with that. And you may have a lot of ups and downs with communicating with people. You know, you probably have a tendency to get really deep on things when you express or when you study something, but it makes it hard. Like for me, sometimes I study things really deeply and intently because that's the Scorpio energy. And even when I'm talking to people, like I read really deep into what people are saying, but it can be a negative for me in that it's, you know that saying, it's hard to see the forest for the trees? That's what a Scorpio in the third house would be. Like you're just looking at things so intently. And the other thing is, you might get a lot of like, you might have a lot of imagination relating to like jealousy, and you might like imagine situations that could make you jealous. So that's the negative aspect of it. I have to start there because I have that placement, and like 3 members of my family have a Scorpio moon, and so I always tell people, you know, I'm going to write a book about that moon because it really makes you just go through a lot of ups and downs, because once you're able to grab a handle of the Scorpio moon, like, so if it's for finances for you, once you're able to get a hold of that, then you take off. You're the phoenix. And so then, you know, your finances will be superior to most of those around you. But until you can master that or raise that kundalini up in that area of your life, then you're going to continue to see a lot of ups and downs. If you have it in the third house, then, because like I said, you have it on the cusp, so you said around 12 a.m., but knowing the exact time can tell me which house it's in for sure. If it's in the third house, then you might even have a lot of issues with like driving and being pulled over or getting tickets and things of that nature, which I find doing paperwork is the alleviation to that. Because, well, not just paperwork, studying first. Study higher principles in law, because the opposite of that third house, which is ruled by Gemini is Sagittarius, 9th house. That is higher knowledge, metaphysics, astrology, universal law, natural law, philosophy, religion. All of those things will help you to overcome some of the challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis. But you got to put it in practice. So as you study those higher sciences, you got to put it in practice to help you pull up from that negative energy that you're receiving from Scorpio that's holding you back at either your finances or like your day-to-day traveling or your way of communicating with people. Even if you have like brothers and sisters or cousins or neighbors that you grew up with, you might have a lot of struggle with them as well. You might have had a lot of struggle with them as well in your lifetime. So, does that sound anything remotely close?
Well, I'm also born a twin, so I know if my energy is.
Talk over.
Oh, true. Okay. There's 2 of us. There's me and my brother, and I know if and they were born in the morning times. I know it's not nighttime, like 8 o'clock. So,
your brother wasn't born until 8 o'clock, you said?
And I'm 45 minutes after him.
Did you say 12 a.m. or 8 a.m.?
8 in the morning.
Oh, wow. See how knowing the time will really throw you off. I thought you said 12. Okay. Well, now, take everything I said, right, about the ups and downs that you may be going through, and now all that the time is going to do is change where all that takes place. Remember, the house itself tells you where things are happening. You still got a Scorpio moon, though. That's not changed. So you still experience, to a large degree, a lot of ups and downs in your life that are supposed to get you to transform a certain area of your life. Now, by looking at the time, the correct time, it's just going to tell me where that takes place. Now, you said 8 a.m. in the morning. That's for you. And you said you have a twin brother that was born 45 minutes later. All right.
Before. I'm the second.
Before, okay. Well, I'm looking at you right now. Okay, so now that places your moon in the 11th house. So same thing as far as a lot of ups and downs, but that may have more to do with like friendships. It may have more to do with like if you were ever in any group, organizations, any movements that you participated in, you know, you probably put your heart really into it, but you just experienced a lot of ups and downs in that area of your life. It looks like your son, now interestingly enough, your brother, his issue might be more so, no, he might still have a similar issue, but it wouldn't be as strong as yours because that would place his moon in the same house, but it would be a little bit further into the house. What would make his different from yours would be his sun would be in a different house than yours. Your sun is in the 12th house. So are you a really like helpful type person? Like people come to you a lot when they need something?
Yeah.
Because the 12th house is Pisces energy, which is, remember I said, it's not about you, it's about the greater good.
Right.
Where your brother may not necessarily experience that as much as you do.
Exactly.
And that, now see how interesting that is with twins. And the only reason that's different is your planets are in the same place, but what changed is by him being born 45 minutes earlier, it places his sun in a different house than where your sun is.
Interesting.
So the sun tells the part of your life that, the house tells the part of your life that may be illuminated. Your sun in the 12th house, you're more of a doing for others type person. Your sun in the first house, you're more of like, it's about me type person. And you know, you get a lot of attention as well. You get a lot of attention, but on a different level. Your attention is more like people see that quality in you. They also see in you that you're really wise. Like when they come to, not only are you wise, you're also benevolent and you're pretty optimistic. So people aren't just coming to you for physical needs, but it's probably on a deeper level. They're coming to you for like your energy because you're pretty positive-minded type of person. That's what people get when they see you. So it can be frustrating, I'm sure, but just know that's part of your purpose is to assist these people. But at the same time, to balance that out, make sure you have some kind of ritual or routine for yourself where you can get your own needs met and relax, because you can't help others unless you take care of yourself. And especially regarding like your diet and health, that's very important as well for you. So
appreciate it.
Yes, no problem. Any other questions?
Can you touch on why these Albions keep changing the time on people? The daylight saving time.
Say that one more time, please.
Why do Albions change daylight saving time or change the time around the fall?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, brother. I don't. That's a good question.
It has nothing to do with astrology?
And I don't want to speculate, so I'm not going to say.
So it doesn't have nothing to do with astrology then?
From what I know thus far, I mean, I haven't read anything regarding that being astrological. Let me see. What did you say? Daylight
saving time.
Saving. Because what I have, okay, what I can say is daylight saving, when it takes place, it takes place during the first cross quarter. Okay, so I have a list of common holidays in relation to the equinoxes and the solstices, and also what they call cross quarter. So remember I showed you that it's a cross, right? This is so this was the cross. We have the sun, the moon, the winter, the summer, the spring, and the fall. But here we would call that right there. That's called a cross quarter day. A cross quarter day. That means I'm in between spring and summer, or I'm in between summer and fall, or I'm in between fall and winter. Cross quarter days. The daylight saving signifies a cross quarter day. That makes sense. It takes place during between, and back on here, it takes place between the winter and the spring. It's a cross quarter day of the winter and the spring. So here's my spring right here.
Yeah.
And here's my winter down here. And right here will be where my daylight saving takes place. And that's called a cross quarter day. So that the holiday itself was created just to indicate that we are going from, we're like halfway between winter and spring. Now, I personally, though, don't know, like, if there's a particular planet that's associated with that. That's what I mean by astrologically, I don't know. Well, I do know that based on when it takes place, it takes place just to signify that we're halfway through a season, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Is your question?
Yep, thanks.
Yep, no problem.
Anybody else?
Any other questions?
Ask her, is this where the Christian cross comes from?
Is this where
All right.
is that where the Christian cross comes from?
Pardon?
The circle and the cross that you showed us just now. Is that the Christian cross? Where it came
That's
from?
where the Christian cross comes from, yes. Yes. Because remember, the Christianity is based on what they call pagan mythologies, and the pagan mythologies are based on things that happen in nature. So that cross is based on something that took place in nature, the 4 seasons, and the Christian church only kept those quote-unquote pagan rituals so that they could easily subjugate people to start following their brand of what they considered Christianity. They said, we're not going to give them something totally new. Let's give them something that they're familiar with and just put a different face on it. So that's why they maintain the concept of the cross in the church, because that cross was a part of the pagan religions, which came from nature.
Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
Sis, you could plug your sites, and if you want email or whatever else for people to reach out to you, and any closing remarks, if you will.
Okay, so I have a couple of websites. My astrology website is moorastrology.com. It's all one word. I'm also on Facebook under Moor Astrology, and on my astrology page, my astrology website, you can find the blogs that I was referring to. I write about astrology on that page. But if you'd like to order, go to Holy Moorish Emporium, holymoorishemporium.org. And that is my temple's page. And so when I do the charts, a portion of the proceeds goes to support the temple and to support my Grand Sheikh Messiah. And you can also find other products on that page that Sister Sheikis, the Grand Sheikis, Crystal, she, crochets, she makes shea butters, she makes soaps, deodorants, toothpaste, all natural. So I'm plugging both our temple page and my Moor Astrology page. And then the second page of my own is the Cultivated Mind. That's my education page. So that website is www.cultivated-minds with an S at the end, .com. And there I have some of the presentations that I've been doing with Abdullah and with Taj. And pretty soon I'm going to have my DVDs. I have some DVDs from the lectures that we've been doing. So those will be up there shortly. And yeah, those are my 2 websites as well as the temple website. And my email address, the best email to me by is Moor, M-O-O-R, of course, moorastrology@yahoo.com. moorastrology@yahoo.com. So if you have any questions about astrology, or even if you want more information regarding etymology, that's on the page, or I can email that to you. And I have recitation that I was supposed to do with Sonetta this past week. We had some technical difficulties, so I just kind of did it without my PowerPoint, but I have a PowerPoint that I am going to put up there as well on my Moor Astrology page, so look out for that. It's on astrology and where all of these Roman mythological gods, where did they come from? Which ancient Kemetic gods or Sumerian gods did they come from? And that's all in the PowerPoint. And, you know, last thing I really want to say is that education is key. You know, I love astrology, but what's most important to me is that people are educated on the things that will aid them to rebuild for themselves and to be able to, you know, have the businesses. People talk about boycott this, boycott that, but we don't have the businesses and the infrastructure to boycott. And so these sciences, astrology, etymology, geometry, different types of trigonometry, learning about the true history, learning about true geography, about ancient customs and present day customs and how they relate. I mean, all of that we have to have a hold of. They teach these things at the Ivy League schools. They teach all our sciences at European schools, and then they don't let us come into those schools. And when we do, we study stuff like Black studies, you know, because I know, I've been there, so I know. So I'm just saying that we got to take hold of our sciences and teach them to the youth, including astrology, and, you know, that's how we're going to rebuild for ourselves. So with that, I yield the floor and I say Islam, and I really appreciate your time and your attention and just everything. I'm really happy, and have a great solstice. It's starting in about an hour and a half Eastern Standard Time. So, you know, if you want to get your white candles, you can get you 4 white candles that you can burn in the shape of a cross and burn them for the next couple of days. Set your intentions, write out what you want, put it in the flame directly even, you know, just do the rituals. Now's a good time, the energy is heightened, and, you know, keep studying, number one. So.
Well, one more thing, people who usually do a first Skype with Canaanland, we need to get some sort of moving forward advice for the Moors in Canaanland from our guest speakers. So if you could give us some going ahead information or whatever like that, and then we'll close out.
You mean like my advice?
Yeah, whatever advice, to, you know, just to the Moors that's present.
Yes. Sisters, I don't know how many sisters are in there. If they're not in there, please relay this to the sisters. We need you. We need your energy. We need your love, your compassion. We need you to build these schools for the babies. We need you to learn this knowledge so that we don't continue to get our children caught up in this whole scheme and the color scheme. You know, it really all comes down to you and me as a sister. And, you know, some sisters have told me they've been put off by more science. I think what it really is they don't see enough of themselves. But if you don't see yourself in something, you know, study more into it. That doesn't mean alienated because you don't see yourself. That means you study it and then you step up and you be that image that you bring other sisters in. Because we got to do this for our children. Please come together. If we're going to build anything, it has to be schools, and we have to have places for these children to be born. So midwifery is of the utmost importance. So please tell any woman, young sister you know who wants to go into nursing or anything, we need them to be the midwives to birth our babies because they're trying to kill us. They're trying to kill our minds, and they're trying to physically kill us as babies. So that's my suggestion is, you know, get that school going and get the sisters involved. You know, one is, I don't know if they came from, I believe it might have come from Canaanland actually. I got an email from a sister who said that she wanted to see more feminine energy. So she's calling us out, those more sisters who are aware and who do know that they're Moors and who do know the science and the history and the knowledge. It's your responsibility to go bring up another sister. Because, you know, it's not going to be just brothers alone. This is a movement of both of us. So that's my piece. That's my suggestion.
Let's give it up for sis.
And the Moor gets his Islams too.
Oh, Islam, boy, for real.
Yeah.
Give thanks.
Yeah.
Oh,
All
just hit that light back there, just so you can see what you've been dealing with for the past little while.
All right, okay. Oh, Islam. Oh, this is so great. I hope to do this again.
Oh, we will.
Next time, I want to talk about etymology because Abdul's been putting me on, man.
All right.
He's sharp.
Give thanks, sis. Appreciate it.
All right, peace.
All right,
Good thanks.
peace.
Islam.
You got a little bit more for sis? There you have it. That was Sister Selah Bey. Once again, welcome to the Moor Science Temple of America. You already know that, we're going to continue, giving you whatever it is that you need with regard to getting you some information so that we can get ourselves out of this mess that we find ourselves in right now. We have about maybe like half hour or something like that. Amari left?
Oh, Amari? Yes.
He's gone? All right. So, yeah. So, if anybody has any quick questions with regard to anything else other than, astrology, I'm not no master or nothing like that.
Oh, someone was asking about that, it was you, Cameron, about the daylight savings. I think that came from wartime stuff.
Oh, that
changing the times to give people more daylight in the winter, and then less daylight, or to sort of even that up. And that was during the time when they were at war, sort of. That's what I think they did, from the European perspective.
All right. Anybody else have any comments, closing comments, questions, anything?
I think also it has to do with the tilt of the Earth. Tilts a couple of degrees where we're able to get more sun during the summertime because of the tilt.
Right.
What they were saying though, that really we shouldn't even be changing that time.
Right,
that was something that was just designed to sort of help the people sort of, feel like they had more time.
Right.
Because it would be, technically now it would be like, it would be like 7:30 now.
Right.
Instead it's 6:30.
Instead of 6:30, right.
I thought it had to do with agriculture or something.
Yeah.
Huh?
I thought it had to do with agriculture.
Yeah.
No, this had to do with the fact that these people, when they were at war, they were trying to give them more time, or at least the perception of more time, right?
Okay.
So, as you see, if you need to pick up anything, you got DVDs, 3 for $20. All the books are labeled, the little booklets. I believe those are $5 each. We have events coming up in January 10th. We're going to be here again with Brother Selah Bey. He's coming up from Philly to do a Q&A and a little talk. And we also have Grand Sheikh Nature El Bey on Saturday. That's going to be probably 12 o'clock to whenever we get out of here. You know how it goes. And on Sunday, we're going to be at Mid Scarborough Community Center, which is Kennedy and Eglinton, 12 to 7. And we're going to be having Brother Selah Bey again. He's going to be doing his full lecture on that day. And we're going to have a lecture with Brother Denham L., also known as Professor Iself. You could check him out online on YouTube and get some info on him. And don't forget, we got Fridays. Friday night, 7 to whenever y'all leave here on Fridays. I hear they usually go till 11, midnight, and all this type of stuff. First and third, Omar, first and third Saturday?
First and third Saturdays, connecting with Selah Bey, who does a Skype down in, I guess, Philly territory. That won't be, the days will be sort of a little bit muddled in January, but come February, once it links back up with sort of both of our schedules, it'll be first and third Saturday from then on, probably February till the end of the year.
Right.
But
And then,
every week we'll have a notice as to whether that's going on or not. But just look for it by like Wednesday, Thursday, so that we don't have wasting anyone's time.
All right. And of course, Sundays, we got on class 4 o'clock. Most of the time, every Sunday. So thank everybody for being here. If you have any donations, feel free to pass them up whenever we close out. And you know, this is your space. Utilize it. Get what you can as far as information. And you know, Islam. We'll just close out with the prayer. We could have everybody stand. Face the east, which is that way.
Thank you.
5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
Through his holy prophet.
Through his holy prophet.
Noble Drew Ali.
Noble Drew Ali.
Islam.
Islam.
Peace and Hotep.
There's a book back here, an attendance book with all you guys.